do swear that the evidence which you shall give to the Senate Select Committee on presidential campaign activities shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
How would you characterize the Watergate burglary?
I guess I'd have to say that it was probably the opening act of one of America's great tragedies.
Former counsel to the President John Dean, in answer to Senator Montoya. The hearings opened May 17, 1973. Members of the committee emphasize what they consider key elements of the testimony to come.
The questions that have been raised in the wake of the June 17th break-in strike at the very undergirding of our democracy.
Committee Chairman Sam Ervin, Democrat of North Carolina.
If the many allegations made to this date are true, then the burglars who broke into the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee at the Watergate were in effect breaking into the home of every citizen of the United States. And if these allegations proved to be true, what they were seeking to steal was not the jewels, money, or other property of American citizens, but something much more valuable, their most precious heritage, the right to vote in a free election. This committee is not a court, nor is it a jury.
Committee Vice Chairman Howard Baker, Republican of Tennessee.
We do not sit to pass judgment on the guilt or innocence of anyone. But this committee can serve another quite important function that neither a grand jury investigation nor a judicial proceeding is equipped to serve. And that is to develop the facts in full view of all of the people of America. Although juries will eventually determine the guilt or the innocence of persons who have been and may be indicted for specific violations of the law, it is the American people who must be the final judge of Watergate.
What will Watergate do, and what will these hearings do to the office and institution of the presidency?
Senator Edward Gurney, Republican of Florida.
That is the question that is uppermost in people's minds and gnawing away in the pits of their stomachs. The future cannot be unaffected by what we say and do in this room. It becomes imperative that this committee and the committee staff and the press and public alike be continually aware that the committee's task is to investigate and to present the facts of the investigation fairly. A sense of history certainly rides with these hearings.
The sins of the spies and the saboteurs, the manipulators and the money men, the burglars and the buggers, must be purged from the very heart and soul of our election processes.
Senator Daniel Inouye, Democrat of Hawaii.
Mr. Chairman, I must add a word of caution. It is vital that hasty judgments not be made before we have all the facts. This country will be ill-served by another period of McCarthyism.
I know that we will be respectful of the rights of individuals.
Senator Joseph Montoya, Democrat of New Mexico.
But at the same time, we will be intent on searching out the truth of all evidentiary components which ostensibly have posed a threat to our constitutional processes, in particular, our concept of freedom and our electoral process.
The gut question for committee and country alike is and was, how much truth do we want?
Senator Lowell Weicker, Republican of Connecticut.
A few men gambled that Americans wanted the quiet of efficiency rather than the turbulence of truth. And they were stopped a yard short of the goal by another few who believed in America as advertised. So the story to come has its significance, not in the acts of men breaking, entering, and bugging the Watergate, but in the acts of men who almost stole America.
The remaining member of the committee is Senator Herman Talmadge, Democrat of Georgia. Senator Ervin often quotes Shakespeare or the Bible to underline his points.
There was a wise man named William Shakespeare that wrote a play called Henry IV. And in that he has one of his characters, Cardinal Wolsey, say, after Cardinal Wolsey, instead of serving the church, had served his king, and he was cast out in his old age with the king, and he said, had I but served my God with half the zeal I served my king, he would not, in mine age, left me naked to mine enemies. You have
The hearing's first witness, Robert Odle of the Committee to Re-elect the President, is questioned about Gordon Liddy and the paper shredder.
I saw Mr. Liddy, saw him in the hall.
I see.
And he asked me where the paper shredder was.
What?
The paper shredder.
All right.
The paper shredder, which is the very famous big paper shredder.
Was there a big paper shredder
Yes,
and a
sir.
little baby
Yes, sir.
paper shredder too?
Pardon?
Was there more than one?
Yes, sir.
All right, and he asked where the big paper shredder is.
Right. I said it's in there.
Did he have anything with him?
Not at that time. He later came out and said, "How do you work it?" And I said, "You press the button."
Robert Odle is questioned by Senator Inouye.
Is it true that you hired Mr. McCord?
Yes, it is.
Were you aware of his activities on June the 17th?
I was not. I first heard that there was a burglary Saturday afternoon after I finished a meeting about, mid-afternoon. And somebody came by the door and they said, "Have you heard there's been a burglary at the Democratic National Committee?" And I said to some people who were in that meeting who were not from the committee, I said, "That could never happen here because I have this guy working for me named Jim McCord." And he's got this place really tight. And all I can say is I'm glad McCord works for me. And then of course, it became apparent what had happened, but no, sir, I did not.
Ex-New York police officer Anthony Ulasewicz, who worked for the White House, is questioned by Senator Baker about the term wireman.
Did I understand you to say that McCord was a pretty good wireman?
Well, from what I've read of the case, and from the fact that Mr. Caulfield hired him, I would say he was one of the best wiremen in the business.
Well, I'm not familiar with the term. What do you mean, a pretty good wireman?
Well, a wireman in police parlance would be anyone who's familiar with applying wiretaps, any type of surveillances by electrical means, and so forth. However, I was never a wireman. Well, while we were in the police department, many of the functions that we did, of course, they were all legal and with proper papers, etc., and judicial permission. We have some of the finest wiremen in the department. And
You think your wiremen were better than McCord's wiremen?
well, I tell you, there was no retired man in the New York City Police Department would be coming involved in a thing like that. And if he thought he had to, for whatever reason it was, he wouldn't have walked in with an army. He would have probably walked in like any decent, common-looking citizen, laid something in the right place, and walked right out, and that would have been the end of it for a long time.
How could you?
Well, they say you must be honest here, Senator.
Yeah,
right?
how could... How could you have gained the information? How could you have gained the information that Mr. McCord obviously or apparently was seeking? That is, telecommunication link with what was going on in the Democratic National Committee, without going in there with an army and taping the doors and all the rest. Describe to us how else that might have been done by a good wireman.
if it's a question of obtaining information from Democratic Party, Republican, or anybody else, the easiest way is to write a postal card and ask them to mail you all their leaflets. They'll put you on, and forever you'll have everything. Even after it's over with, you'll still get it. They're very happy to do so.
You mean politicians are pretty anxious to add to their mailing list?
And the politicians are most vulnerable people in the world, in my experience in the last 3 years, to any kind of scandal, et cetera, and et cetera.
Well,
I don't say they're guilty of it, because I still have to come back here. But because of the type, and
the last thing on earth I'd want to do is to convert your testimony into self-serving purposes for this committee. But you don't have any good wiremen on us, do you?
It looks like there's plenty of them here.
You know, that's not a very good answer. You're heightening my concern rather than lessening it.
I have none on anybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alfred C. Baldwin, who worked with the Watergate burglars, was across the street from the Democratic National Committee headquarters. Here he tells Senator Weicker what happened after the team had been captured by police the night of the break-in.
Mr. Hunt came into the room.
All right.
He then proceeded to give me instructions what to do with the equipment.
And what were those instructions?
Well, he removed a walkie-talkie, put it on the bed, and he told me to pack up everything. I believe his expression was, "Get it the hell out of here. Get yourself the hell out of here. Go somewhere. Where are you gonna go?" I said, "Well, I can go to Connecticut." And he said, "Well, go." And he said, "We'll be in touch. You'll get further instructions."
Now,
he said, "I want you to take all this equipment to Mr. McCord's house." And I had a little debate with him about that, because I said, "Well, there's two of you, and there's only one of me. Why can't you drive it and somebody can drive you back? If I get out there, I have no way to get back." He said, "Mrs. McCord or somebody will drive you back. You work that out." And he proceeded to go out the door, and he went down to the elevator.
Now, he went out the door, and was he running down the hall or
Yes,
walking?
he was. No, he was departing.
And did you say anything to him as he went running down the hall?
Yes, I did.
What'd you say to him?
I asked him if this meant I wasn't going to Miami.
G. Gordon Liddy, architect of the CRP intelligence plan, is described by White House aide John Caulfield in questioning by Committee Minority Counsel Fred Thompson.
My impression of Mr. Liddy was that he may have been a very capable legal general counsel, but that he also occasionally did some fairly bizarre things. He gave...
We know of one, but...
Pardon?
For example?
He gave a secretary in our office a large poster of himself. Probably,
I don't know if we should pursue that any further, but...
Probably 6 feet by 4 feet in size.
Larger than life size.
Larger than life. It was occasionally bizarre.
CRP official Hugh Sloan tells the committee about his transportation troubles.
My car, which I had parked in a towaway zone, that day lasted beyond the 4:30, and my car had disappeared following my resignation. And the only person...
Was that any connection with Watergate?
I don't believe so, Senator. I was somewhat frustrated at that point and turned to John Dean if he might be of some assistance in locating where the Metropolitan Police Department might have placed it, and he was very helpful in that regard.
He certainly has a lot of contacts.
The counsel will call the witness.